In this lesson, we're going to talk about data representation. So, we need to represent data clearly and efficiently so that it conveys the information to our readers so that data cannot be misinterpreted. So, what ways can we represent data we collect from experimentation? Well, a lot of times, whenever we collect any data, which is really our quantitative observation, we want to be able to collect data into tables and graphs. Because that is two things. It keeps us organized, and the second thing is that it's efficient. You want to make sure that this information can be read quickly. All right? So that's very, very important when we talk about collecting data from experimentation. When we talk about graphs, though, what are the different types of graphs we have? Well, there are really three main types of graphs. We have what we call bar graphs. And bar graphs are usually used for comparison. So you're comparing one thing to another. We have line graph. And line graphs show change. So you're trying to show the change of something over, for example, time. And the third one is a circle graph. A circle graph is also a comparison graph. But in this case, it's a comparison with, in a sense, percentages. Because you're only dealing with 100%. So in this case, these are the different types of graphs we have. So let's look at example number 1. So we see that we have information in the table that shows the months and the amount of rain. What do? Well, it looks to be that this is comparing the amount of rain per each month. So we want to be able to now create a graph that compares each of these months. So what do we do? Well, look at this. We have two axes on all graphs. We have what we call a y-axis and an x-axis. Our x-axis is usually the first column on a graph. That means our second column must be the y. Another way to look at it is a lot of times our y-axis is called a dependent variable. Our x-axis is called the independent variable, just like what we talked about in the last lesson. In this case, that means the amount of rain depends on the month. So that's another way you can think about it. So now if we look at this, we have our months. We have January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Now I'm kind of running out of space here, but I'm sure that you could fit yours in there. So then the next thing is now I gotta create my amounts. So if I count a certain amount of things. So if I go, this is, let's say 10 millimeters, that means this is 20, 30, 40, 50, so it's 50 millimeters. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, this is 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 60, 70, 80, 90, 200, and that means the top one is 250. So now we want to give these titles. We want to call these x and y axes. What we want to say here is this the amount of rain in the units millimeters. So actually we don't even need the unit on here. Well, these ones down here, the x-axis, that's months. So the last thing now is to create, using the best of our ability, bars. Now, I don't have the option of a bar, but I could try doing it with this square function. In January, I had 180 millimeters of rain. So what does that look like? Well, in January, this is what it would look like. So here's 180. 180 is about right there. Okay, now I'm going to try moving this over. Now, you're going to have way better dexterity than I do using this, but I'll keep it there for now. And our second one, February. February is 150. So 150 is right here. In March, March is 160. So that means it's right here. It's a bit more. Then April is 24, so we now have one that goes all the way down to just 24. Okay. Now what you notice is that this is pretty tedious. So what you want to do is you want to take this information and put it into Excel. And I'll show you this after I look at the next question. I'll show you how to punch both of these into Excel, and that will speed up your process a lot and actually will save you a lot of time. So then you create the rest of your graph and you're gonna get a bar graph. The next one is represent this table in terms of a graph. So let's look at this one. So this one here, what you're gonna notice is that you're gonna have another table. You're gonna know this is your X, this is your Y, aka how far you travel depends on your time. So that means down here, this one is time. And this is distance in kilometers. So then our next thing we want to do is now we want to separate our time. So if this is 1, 2, 3, this is 3, 4, 5, so that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This will be 20, and I actually need to go up to 21. So there, look at this. This is the issue I'm going to run into. I'm going to run into an issue in which I can't fit this graph. This is where Excel comes in. Second thing also is I want to start increasing. So this is 0. I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 500 kilometers. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is 1,000 kilometers. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is 1,500 kilometers. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is 2,000 kilometers. This is 2,500 kilometers. So we have that. So these can now be placed because this is actually a line graph, we call it, because this is a change. We're showing change. This can be represented as what we call an ordered pair. So each of these is an ordered pair that can show up on this graph to show the change. So at 3 hours, which is right here, 3 hours, you've traveled 291 kilometers. So we put a dot where the order pairs. So we have 3, 100, 200, 300. So this is just right about there. So then we have 6 hours is 600 kilometers, a bit over 600. So it's right there. Oops, 600 is right here. Okay. 9 hours is 873. So 873 is right about there. 12 hours is almost 1,200, so it's right around there. 15 is 1,500 kilometers, so it's right around there. And then last but 18 hours is 1,800 kilometers, which is right around there. And then 2,100 kilometers is at 21 hours, which is right outside the graph. I drew it in a sense that I didn't fit in the graph. So what do you do last? The last thing now is to draw a line to try to fit all these dots. And you can clearly see at 0 time you should have traveled. You start there and you draw a line going up that tries to fit all these dots. Sometimes they won't, so instead you want to draw what we call line of best fit, which means that you want to draw the best line that shows and fits as many dots as possible, and in a sense it's the average. And there's our line. So what this line shows me is now that I could interpolate at 5 hours how far would I have traveled. At 10 hours, how far would I travel, and so forth, because that's not in the table. So this is a way to represent this information on a graph. So now I'm going to show you how to do this on Excel. So in Excel, what we're going to have is we're going to have this information written out in the table. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our information needed. We're going to go to Insert, and you're going to see a bunch of charts here. We're going to choose the one that looks like a bar graph. In this case, it says bar chart. So hit that. Now, if you don't know which one to choose, you always choose recommended chart. And it'll ask you which one it thinks is the best. But if you want to choose a specific one, you can choose a bar chart. So in this case, if you do that, this is what you get. So now you get to play around with it. So you see all the months are labeled out. So what you do, you can now go up to the very top. You click either chart design or format. Format changes what the table looks like. Chart design changes what you can add. So for example, you can add a title. So in this case, these are the months. You can also add a title for the vertical. In this case, it's the amount of rain, in this case, millimeters. Okay. Now you could also change the main title, which is the amount of rainfall, for example. Okay. What else can you add? You could add error bars. You could add legend, for example. You can also go to change the color, for example. You change the style, but this is what you got. Now what's the next step? Well, the next step now is you can now take this and copy it. And you could copy this into your lab report, for example. So here's your lab report. Imagine you type a lab report, and all of a sudden you need to paste it now. So what you do, you go Control V or paste. And what you have your graph on your report now. All right, so that's what you gotta do. So let's try out with another one. Okay, so let's take this next one. We take this one. This one we know is a line graph. So we go insert. Now you're gonna notice there's two types of line graph. There's this one that says line or area chart. We don't want that one. We want the one that's gonna give us ordered pairs. In this case, it's called a scatter plot or a bubble chart. We select that. We select our dot or scatter. So there we go. We have our dots. Now where do we add the line? Do we just manually draw the line in? No, what you do is you go add chart element again, or you click the plus sign here to also do the same thing. And what you want to do is you want to add what we call a trend line. And you want to add a linear trend line. Boom. There's our linear trend line. So what do you do next? Well, what we want to do next is now we can actually edit this trend line. So if you click on the line itself, it'll ask you to, trend line options. If you click on this, you click on the trend line, you click on this arrow. Once you have that, you have to click on more options. And this will now give you more options for the trend line. So now what you want to do is you could hit and set intercept, set it to 0 if you want to. You can go and extrapolate or interpolate, but what you can also do is look at the formula. And what you're going to notice here is the formula could be provided. So again, what you do is you can go trend line, click this arrow, go more options. Then what you want to do is you want to set equation on chart, and that will give you the equation. In this case, the equation says y is equal to 99.729x. If you've taken Math 10, for example, which shows you how to graph these y equals mx plus b lines, you would know what these numbers mean. So these are two different ways of graphing. So, as always, make sure you keep yourself safe and healthy, and I'll see you soon.